We are a few days away from week 2. A lot to talk about. We got it all locked in next. Stay tuned. We got my boy Rohan Chakravarthi talking about what needs to change for the 49ers to get that elusive dub. What is up, fam? Let me clear my throat. Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk TV. I am your host, So Real Sunil, and we got a really great show locked in for you tonight. We got my baby bro, Rohan Chakravarthi. He's about 5 minutes out, but he will be locked in talking everything 49ers, specifically what the 49ers need to do better to get that win against Seattle. But I do want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We are making that push to 1,000. We are less than 50 subscribers away. So if you could tell your mama, tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your daddy, tell your cousins, and get me to 1,000, it is much appreciated. Got some people jumping in. Raphael 5629ers. What's up, Sunil, Rohan, and everyone? What's up, Raphael? Haven't seen you in a minute, my guy. Thank you so much for tuning in. Steve O Supremo. Can't like until you make me like. I like that. Put the pressure on me. I will come with the energy, and I'll earn that like specifically from you, my man Steve O Supremo. So before Rohan gets in here, I want to talk a little bit about the game from week 1. Clearly a loss that we didn't want to take. Very disappointing, just because if you were like me, I thought it was going to be an easy victory for the 49ers, but clearly the track record has shown when it comes to Kyle Shanahan run 49er team, week 1, you never know what you're going to get, right? The team usually doesn't come out as focused as we'd like. The team usually doesn't, usually doesn't play to expectations, to say the least. But the biggest thing that I am looking to see and find out about when it comes to the 49ers week 1 versus the 49ers week 2 is I want to see the consistency from the offense. It's something that I've been harping on for the last few seasons, and actually it's kind of been with the, I guess, exception of the 2019 season, the 49ers have been pretty inept when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, when it comes especially scoring in the first half of games. Last year they ended up averaging about 11 points in the first half, but if you break down those numbers, a lot of those points were coming in the last 2 to 4 minutes of the second quarter, in the 2-minute drill. So for some reason, the 49ers have struggled when it comes to scoring in the first and second quarters on scripted plays that Kyle Shanahan is calling. Now, I don't know why this is, but I do know it's a consistent problem that I feel like could be exacerbated a little bit more this season because we do have a young quarterback that is learning a lot of new situations on the fly. Trey Lance, to me, is definitely the quarterback of the future. Even though, he's going to have his ups and downs, I still believe I've seen enough to know that this guy's ceiling is exactly what we need because it's out of this world. And his floor actually isn't as bad as some people want to create this narrative. I think he made some pretty amazing throws. Definitely the one to Ray McLeod, the throw to Brandon Ayuk. Definitely some very precise throws that you're seeing the strength from his arm. But we're also seeing a kid that hasn't thrown the ball a lot and still is trying to understand and learn what an open receiver is in the NFL versus what he's seen in his experience playing college ball. And the truth is, he didn't throw a lot in college, right? He averaged about 16 passes per game. But the thing that I am most, I guess not worried, but it would be ideal to not put Trey Lance in too many positions where he has to win the game coming from behind. Because the truth is, he hasn't been in too many situations where that has been the case. Obviously, at NDSU, he was a very successful quarterback, had amazing numbers, threw 0 interceptions. But a lot of those games, they were blowing out teams. There were games where he didn't even play in the second half because they had such a big lead. And yes, last week obviously was a game where they went down by 9 points. Obviously, the rain was a big factor, but we haven't seen Trey necessarily do that, win a game with everything on his shoulders. And clearly that's going to be the case because there's no way to just bypass that altogether. However, one way that the 49ers can make it easier on the team is by scoring more in the first half of games. I think it was criminal that they only scored 7 points in that first half. They should have. Obviously, he missed Tyler Kroft for a wide open touchdown that would have made it 14. Debo's fumble clearly stopped the momentum on that first drive. That could have been 3 to 7 points. So we're looking at a score of 17 to 21 points going into the first half, or ending in scoring in the first half. That would have changed the game completely. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is this just seems to be something that happens with Kyle Shanahan. If they do score in the first half, they're not scoring in the second half. They're not scoring in the second half, or if they are scoring in the second half, they weren't scoring in the first half. So I need to see the 49ers put together a great 4 quarters of offense. That's something that I think is going to be key for the 49ers having the type of success that we all want them to have this year. They have enough talent on this roster to be competing for a Super Bowl, but the execution is going to be what's different from being Super Bowl caliber on paper to Super Bowl caliber on the field. And another reason why I do feel like the 49ers need to start putting more pressure on themselves to take advantage of opportunities in the first half is the strength of schedule that the 49ers are playing are extremely, extremely difficult. They're going to be playing teams that have high-powered offenses, and we don't want to get into a position where the 49ers need to go touchdown for touchdown with some of these great quarterbacks that the 49ers are going to be playing moving on through the season. So I think that's the biggest thing that I want to see different, but you guys aren't here just to hear me talk. You guys are here for the man, the myth, the legend, my guy, Rohan Chakravarthi. I'm going to switch it up a little bit right here to let my guy come in. Rohan!
What's going on? How y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing fantastic, my man. I don't know how you do it. You're out there in Wisconsin, but still somehow in the 49ers locker room, man. You are like, I know why you were a little bit late, man. That's quite the trek to get back from Wisconsin all the way back to San Francisco to get into the 49ers locker room. So I appreciate you doing that for me today, bro.
I mean, I was a couple minutes late. Had to make the flight over, just a quick 10-minute flight, and then straight to the locker room.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So, Rohan, I wanted to do something with you. I mean, it's Wednesday, so I haven't gotten a chance to really talk to you about the Bears game. And I don't really want to because I think it's been talked out, right? And you have great content on 49ers Web Zone. So if anybody wants to hear your takes, they are there. I want to turn the page to next week. And we're gonna get some of your takes for the Bears because from the Bears game, because we're gonna tie it all together. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk about specific players or specific aspects of the 49er game, and I want you to tell me what needs to be different from last week to this week for the 49ers to actually get a victory against Seattle. Okay,
All
so
right.
let's start with the most important player position on the team, and that's quarterback, and that's our guy Trey Lance. So what needs to be different from the game of Trey Lance for the 49ers to get the dub against Seattle, Rohan?
I'll go with really, I think probably maybe the main issue that he has, because there are a lot of things that Trey Lance did well. And when I was going through my grades this week, I actually graded his performance at a B. But when you talk about Trey Lance, the one thing that I'll say is accuracy and over the middle of the field. Trey Lance, that's something that he hasn't necessarily done as well in general, right? And we saw it in this game, still working through the ins and outs of accuracy over the middle of the field. He's been able to hit other throws. He's been able to make like the difficult throws. We saw the layered throw to Ray McLeod. We've seen him really utilize that deep crossing route, one that Jimmy Garoppolo might have not used as much. And I don't really like making comparisons, but that's the difference kind of in the offense. But to me, it's probably accuracy and specifically in the middle of the field because a lot of the 49ers offense is predicated in that area. And unless we see Kyle Shanahan make a change in a way or Trey Lance make a change in the reads that he prefers, I think that that's somewhere where I would like to see improve. And obviously, it's going to be better conditions, even if it's raining a bit in California, at Santa Clara at Levi Stadium on the day. I do think that the weather conditions will still be better than the monsoon over there in Chicago.
For sure. And CJ Gray, thank you for jumping in. Definitely agrees with you in the first 3 quarters. Trey was good outside of 2 plays and obviously interception. And then, the couple of missed, I think, opportunities, I should say. Obviously the missed touchdown to Croft. And I believe there was a pass to Jennings that I think he just didn't pull the trigger on. I don't know if it's so much accuracy. Obviously accuracy plays a role in it, Rohan, but I think the underlying issue is he's still in 2 minds. I think that Trey Lance, he's making the right reads. He's making the right decision, which is obviously good as far as who to throw it to. The problem is I don't know if he trusts his arm. I had your brother Marco on with me a little bit earlier, and that was the point he was making. I thought it was more of an issue that he still hasn't understood these timing routes because a lot of the timing passes seems to be the ones that he's struggling on. But it seemed what Marco was saying is more of his confidence in understanding that he actually has the arm strength to get there. So can you talk a little bit about, do you think it's inaccuracy or do you think it's just him hesitating and he needs to be more, I guess, decisive with his throws? Because it seems like his eyes and who he's choosing is the right person to throw to.
Right. Okay. So I'll clarify a little bit. I think decision-making is good. I think decision-making was pretty good. Even on the interception, I thought the decision-making was pretty good. It seems like he's hitting the right reads because the reads that he's hitting are fairly open. But overall, I think it is a combination of both. I think the accuracy does still need to improve a bit. There are balls that are off target. But I also think, it might just be him trying to get into get into the flow of the NFL game. He himself said it. It's a lot faster, especially in the run game. But on that interception, I thought that, it's a bit attributed to him not necessarily trusting himself as much. That's why he threw it a tad second late, because he was trying to, in a way, hold off that defender. But he's got the arm strength to where if he doesn't hesitate, he just zips it in there. That's a complete pass probably to the in-breaking receiver.
Absolutely. And CJ, got to give him props. He did correct me. The interception was in the 4th. That is absolutely correct. And I agree with CJ too. I think he needs reps for the timing. Definitely. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't thrown the ball a lot. Like I said earlier in the stream, he averaged about 16 passes through college. Obviously, this is his first full-time starting gig in the NFL. So he needs more reps. And with more reps, he'll be able to understand what an open receiver is in the NFL. He'll understand what he needs to do as far as the velocity, as far as the placement and things like that are just going to come more with repetition. There's only so much you could see on game film. There's only so much you can do in practice. It's not until the pressure is on, the speed of the game is the way that it is, where he's actually going to learn how to do those things. So outside of that, Rohan, I do want to mention one more aspect because you talked about the accuracy, but there is obviously a big loss from last week, which was um, Elijah Mitchell. Obviously, the running game is still very important to the 49ers. What do you need to see out of Trey Lance to help this running game out? Because obviously, their stud running back is going to be out for quite some time.
I think that what I want to see, not only from Trey Lance, I mean, first of all, if we're talking about Trey Lance, I want to make sure that he doesn't get injured, right? That's the main thing. We saw him get injured last year when he ran 16 times in his first start over there against Arizona. 16 times. It was good efficiency, right? For 89 yards. He was the leading rusher, I believe, in that game. But you don't want him to get injured. That's the number one thing. And so to me, whatever Trey Lance does, he said today he's not gonna slide if it means losing a first down. I want him to make sure he remains healthy, and so that's the main thing. But overall, be like I saw it at times, and I saw both sides of it. I saw when he wasn't decisive, made him feel slower. He's got the speed, he's got really the elements, but sometimes when he's not decisive or when he doesn't trust his legs, or when he not necessarily doesn't trust his legs, but when he doesn't just take off when he believes he should take off, then he seems a little slower. But there were times where nothing's there, he's going. And that's where you saw those 25, 30-yard gains when he was taken off along the sidelines back in training camp. So to me, that's what I want to see. I want to see the kind of it all seems smooth in the run game rather than him being a little hesitant. And by hesitant, I'm not saying don't look to pass. I'm not saying take off immediately. I'm just saying whatever the game flow is suggesting, don't when nothing's there, don't force it and still look to pass, but don't force it. But take off when you believe that there is no availabilities down the field.
Absolutely. And segueing to that, obviously Elijah Mitchell is gone. He's on IR. That means he's missing a minimum of 4 games, Rohan. More than likely, it's going to be longer than that with the type of injury that he has. So that is obviously a very tough loss because Elijah Mitchell was looking um, pretty effective when he was in there. The rushing game seemed pretty effective, right? I guess most of the guys that were rushing, whether it be Debo, Elijah Mitchell, averaging over 5 yards per carry. However, the third running back in there, which is now going to be the starting running back, which is Jeff Wilson Jr., he was a lot lower than that. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was
2.4. Yeah, 9
yeah,
rushes for 22 yards.
yeah. So very, very below average, right? So what does the running game need to do different um, to get the W?
To me, I think Kyle Shanahan alluded to it. Ride the hot hand. Don't force a like he said he'd ride the hot hand between the rookies. I think that's true, and I say don't force one player because you believe in him in a way. Ride the hot hand and go with whoever the real what do you call it? Go with whoever the best option is at the time. And so
Mm-hmm.
I want to see kind of not equal carries, but I want to see guys being involved. I'm interested to see will Marlon Mack be activated for this game, because if he does, that means TDP is likely out again, given that he was out this time, and Marlon Mack doesn't play special teams, so Jordan Mason's would be your special teams running back. But I'm very interested to see what the rotation is, but also I want to see Debo Samuel incorporated. Right, we saw Debo Samuel incorporated last week, 8 carries, 52 yards. He was the second leading rusher behind Lance. I want to see all the pieces activated, because if you utilize the threat of Lance and his legs, that opens up the passing game, helps it. If you utilize Debo Samuel, you're utilizing his full traits, and that helps the remainder of the running backs, because there's so many different ways that you can scheme plays. We saw the triple option type of play where you fake it to Debo Samuel running the inside route, the inside zone. Then obviously the speed option with Lance Mitchell. You could run different creative plays, but I want to see the hot hand being ridden. Not necessarily if a player is struggling, don't continue to go for them, because it's not going to move your offense as well. But I also want to see the main pieces be incorporated as well.
I know you're a big Jordan Mason fan. He got, even when Elijah Mitchell went down, and CJ, brings up a great point. Game went wrong once Elijah Mitchell went down. Jordan Mason got no carries. What do you make of that?
It's not that I expected it, but I didn't know what really Jordan Mason's role would be. And hearing Kyle Shanahan at the end, the reason that Jordan Mason was just activated was because of special teams, and he got 5 special team snaps. So to me, I didn't think too much of it. I think Jordan Mason, I think Shanahan came in with a game plan that it would be Mitchell, probably for a good portion of the time. Mitchell, Samuel, and Lance. Then Mitchell goes down, you got to relegate to Jeff Wilson Jr. Now without Mitchell, I think you go to more of a timeshare, although I don't think it's going to be as crazy of a timeshare as people believe. Although I think the 49ers will ride with a hot hand. That's kind of how I view this game. I think it will be a little more evenly split than what it would have been had Mitchell been healthy.
Okay, so you think it's going to be running by committee. There's not going to be maybe one back or one person that
kind of back to the classic Shanahan style in a way.
Okay. Well, that's obviously what was very effective in 2019. Maybe we'll get some vibes back to 2019 because we haven't seen that since then. Let's move to obviously something that's very integral with that rushing attack, offensive line. And here's the thing, Rohan. PFF ranked the 49ers offensive line extremely high. I think they're ranked number 1 in pass protection and number 5 in running. So that's incredible. I don't know if that really showed at the actual game, because it seemed like, even all the offensive linemen had plays that they wish they could have had back. But what do you need to see from this offensive line? What needs to change so that, there's a victory this Sunday?
Yeah, I think what needs to change, well, first of all, the tackles have to play better. And it's funny, right? You don't necessarily think I'd say the tackles when they were kind of the two solidified pieces coming into the offseason. But both the tackles didn't have their best games. McGlinchey gave up a sack. Williams gave up. It's not that he gave up a couple of pressures, but his pass block win rate wasn't as high. Didn't seem like a regular Williams game. Although I'm very confident that he'll bounce back given it's Trent Williams. And then on the interior, you want to see that they continue to make blocks in the run game, that the run game continues to move well, because that's going to be a huge factor. The 49ers rushed for 4.8 yards per attempt on 37 attempts now in this past game, and they still lost. But now, without Elijah Mitchell, you need to make sure that run game is moving smoothly. And so I want to see, good holds being created in the run game on those schemes, and that kind of sets up with the interior. So that's kind of what I want to see in general. The tackles kind of having a bounce back game, and then improvements along the in the running game from the interior. Although I think if the tackles play well, I think the offensive line will look much improved.
Steve-O Supremo has an interesting question, Rohan. So there's this narrative that's being created because there was a play where clearly, Lance went down and nobody helped him up. What do you make of that play where the O-line not helping Lance up? Is this just, earning his stripes, or is this a sign that they want Jimmy?
Yeah, this is interesting, right? Because obviously we've all seen the clip. McGlinchey and Williams both didn't help up. In fact, it seemed like only Aaron Banks went to even talk to Trey Lance after he got up. And so to me, it's not concerning, but you do want your offensive line to help up your quarterback after they messed up, because that was on the offensive line. There were other sacks, maybe that the other sack you could have maybe attributed to Trey Lance, but that was on the offensive line there. It could have been a touchdown, or it could have been at least something had the offensive line not given up that sack, specifically Mike McGlinchey. And I believe that was the one that pushed him out of field goal range as well. I don't think the second part's true. I don't really attribute this at all to Jimmy Garoppolo, but I'm not a huge fan of the offensive line not picking up their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good optics for sure. Clearly, it runs wild, and I hate you, Steve-O, for bringing up this thing, but I also love you because it's absolutely the right question to ask, because it is out there. I want to chalk it up to the fact that these guys weren't playing well. And I think it was more frustrations in themselves and kind of like versus I just don't think they were head mentally in the game at that point. I think they were more frustrated with the way that they were playing and kind of just forgot. That's what I want to believe. This could be optimism and clearly, feelings over facts. But I agree with you, Rohan. It isn't great to see. Steve, I think it's a great question, and it's going to be something to pay attention to moving forward because yeah, that's going to be obviously. There's a lot of people that are obviously there's going to be a lot of people that are looking to see chinks in the armor when it comes to Lance and how he's leading this team and so on and so forth. I think the thing for me that I really need to see is just consistency, man. Just giving Lance more time. Seems like it seems like he was pressured quite a bit. I know they got the ratings from PFF, but I don't know how they graded because it seemed like I think they gave up the sixth most pressures in the league that week, and that's too much, right? Lance is looking to have plays develop to be able to throw the ball a little bit deeper down the field than what Jimmy was willing to do. Jimmy obviously was very elite at getting the ball out quickly, and that's not Lance's game, and that is something that he needs to develop clearly.
Yeah.
But he wants more time in the pocket so that he could throw it down the field a little bit longer to an open Ayuk or an open Debo. That's something that we didn't have in the offense last year, and it's going to take the offensive line giving him an extra hitch, an extra second to be able to go through his progression so he could get there. And that's really what I really want to see, Rohan.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there.
So let's move on. This one is interesting. We all know that I'm a Shanna stan, but I have been kind of saying this, right? So when you think of offensive geniuses, Kyle Shanahan gets, mentioned a lot. Another guy is Andy Reid, right? And the one difference, or obviously there's a lot of differences, but they do get, I guess, there's a lot of similarities because they've had a lot of success without winning the big one. Obviously, Andy Reid has won the big one now at the cost of Kyle Shanahan losing it. But there's this thing about Shanahan being an offensive genius, which I believe. I think he's a great schemer of plays, Rohan. But in the 6 years that he's been here, the defense has always been the strongest part of this team. The defense has always been what needs to bail out the offense. And it's very rarely I think you could probably count on one hand, and you don't even need to use all your fingers to be able to count the amount of times that this offense has bailed out the defense. So when you're saying, when you take that into consideration, and again, only putting 7 points in the first half, only scoring 10 points against a defense that not too many people really are looking at as a top defense in the NFL, and then giving up 19 points let's not talk about that, but let's just Kyle Shanahan in general. What do you need to see out of him to give you confidence that they could get this W?
Right. I think it's not offensive play calling wise, but more so decision making as a head coach that has kind of thwarted him, right? Like you see overall, right? He's had a consistent you have to point it out, even though there's not necessarily an exact thing behind it, but he's blown leads, right? You've seen 10-point leads consistently being blown in the Kyle Shanahan era. The counter to that is that he's won a good amount, obviously, in the 2 seasons that he's won, but the blown leads are something to watch. And there are certain decisions, right? A lot of people talk about 4th down decisions. I think that is that's something that you have to consider. He's sometimes too conservative, and then we've also seen times where he's super aggressive. You look at Week 5 last year when Trey Lance had his first start. I think we went for it on 5 4th downs in that game, including a couple near midfield. So it's like inconsistencies with that. You want to be aggressive, but you also need to understand the differences between putting up, like, losing the chance on points when you need points and being aggressive. So to me, I think it's more so the decision making that I'm looking to see from Kyle Shanahan, being more consistent. And also the one thing that I talked to with Marco that Grant Cohn brought up this week that I really liked, and I actually thought myself in a way, was the 49ers, like, and Kyle Shanahan specifically, they didn't stick with the things that were working. I think that that's something I want to see. I want to see if something's working and they don't have a counter for it, go to it again. I think that is something that should be a part of your offensive formula. Like we saw, for example, we see with the deep crossers, right? There was the one to Ray McLeod, and then there was the other one to Brandon Ayuk, right? There were those two plays both worked. The receivers were fairly open, especially on the Ayuk one, and even on the McLeod one. If Lance throws it a second earlier, he's open, and Lance made a hell of a throw instead. Those plays worked when you ran it again. I think that that's something that I'd like to see if something's working, to continue running it to force the defense to adjust, so then you can run something else again.
I agree with you. Marco made that point on our show earlier today. He does tend to outthink himself, right? He thinks that, okay, this is working. The defense is going to adjust. And he's trying to outthink the defense as far as they're about to zag, let me zig kind of thing. But I would like to see him just keep doing it until they figure it out, instead of trying to figure it out before they figure it out. Like, just keep doing it till they make the adjustment and then it stops working, and then do something different, because you're missing out, like you said, on opportunities where they probably could get yards, could get successful plays, that he's just outthinking himself from doing. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And he's trying to fix it even before it's broken. And I agree. That is something that we need to see from Kyle Shanahan, because there's no excuses this season. He has everything he's asked for. He has enough talent, even with Kittle gone. Not out. Even with Elijah Mitchell down, he still has enough talent to where the Chicago Bears shouldn't have been a loss, especially on the defensive side, even on the offensive side, even with the weather. So we do need to see Kyle Shanahan, not necessarily a redemption game, I would say, Rohan, but we do need to see him like get into his groove a little bit, because it seems like he still doesn't know how to use Trey Lance. That's the sense that I got. He still doesn't know how to call a full game for Trey Lance. I don't know if I'm over exaggerating when I'm saying that. Rohan, did you get that sense that he still doesn't have it completely figured out with how to call a Trey game?
I don't know if it's that or if it's him still trying to hide what to do with Trey Lance, and in a way, right? Like I think that he has certain ideas with Trey Lance, and there's still a good arsenal to be tapped into with Trey Lance. I just wonder, when is that arsenal going to be released? Maybe it is him being scared a little bit. Maybe it is him kind of like, overthinking it, like you said, trying to beat other teams, like trying to overthink it by trying to beat other teams without actually doing it, right? Just go ahead, take what's given to you. Don't try and overthink it. Don't try and think 3 steps ahead, even though, your play calling can work when you do that at times. To me, I do think that there is still stuff to do with Trey Lance. And I think that also it's his first start in the second season, right? First true season as a starter. It's going to take some time, I think. And I think it's not only with this situation. We've seen it where in new quarterback situations all across, right? You talk about the the biggest one was Russell Wilson with Denver Broncos, right? They lost in week 1 to the Seattle Seahawks 17-16, and even though Russ threw for like 70% completion percentage, 340 yards, it still wasn't a pretty performance in my opinion, or as pretty as the numbers indicated. And
Mm-hmm.
so to me, I still think there are quarterbacks going into a new situation, be it new play caller or new system, that I think that are still working through it.
Steve-O throwing some shade. Kyle calls plays and changes them for 3 games in advance. You're not too far from the truth, man. It does seem like Kyle Shanahan's always trying to play 4D chess. The defense, Rohan. The defense played really good that first half, majority of that third quarter, and then came all of the penalties. I think I know at least one thing that you need to see for them to get a victory, but what do you need to see out of the defense? What needs to change to get a victory over the Seahawks?
I think what needs to change, really, be consistent over 4 quarters. We talked about this issue offensively earlier in the offseason. We thought we wanted the offense to stay consistent over 4 quarters. Well, in this past game, the defense kind of faltered in the second half. We saw a couple of busted coverages. And to me, I think To stay consistent, to be more specific, communication in that back end kind of needs to maybe improve because Jimmy Ward won't be there. It's going to be, the guys that played this last week, George Odom, Talanoa Hufanga, and Tashawn Gibson, who got elevated to the active roster. Communication in the deep end or in the back end so that those little what do you call it, lapses, right? The two broken plays that ended up being touchdowns, those don't happen again. And also, I do want to see kind of the correct formation. I don't want to see Talanoa Hufanga as a single high safety in several packages as the guy covering the back end, right? We know that that's not necessarily his biggest strength. Place players where they're most comfortable so that your defense can have the highest potential.
Yeah, I mean, Hufanga did have a great game, but he was out of position a few times. I was kind of disappointed in Womack. I thought he missed a couple of assignments that led to some big plays. And obviously the biggest thing, Rohan, is the unnecessary penalties. I mean, Dre Greenlaw had a couple of just terrible penalties.
2 15-yard penalties, and then
Yeah,
Shire had
I mean,
one too.
Shire had one. My boy Charvarius Ward even had a penalty, and he's Mr. I don't get penalties, right? So just a lot of and inopportune penalties, right? Where you got the guys against the ropes, you have them in second and long, third and long, and you stop them, and then you're giving them momentum. Like that mixed with the offense ineptness and actually scoring points, you let any NFL team in it long enough to eventually things can happen, and it leads to obviously a loss for the 49ers. For me, I would love to see the defense get back to just dictating this game. I think they did a great job in the first half, man. They were getting interceptions. They were changing field position. They were doing a lot of great things to really help this offense. And what you would want to see a defense do for a young quarterback, they were making it really easy. And Trey Lance even spoke about it, saying, the defense did enough for us to win. It was really on me and the offense why we didn't win. But we need to see that 4 quarters, like you mentioned. I want a duplication of that first half because they looked elite, man. It didn't look like the Chicago had a chance to do anything in that first half, and we just need to see them be able to do that for a full game. All right, well, obviously there is, a new game.
I don't know if this is my end or your end. Okay, we're back.
All right, cool. Yeah, it's definitely your end. But anyways, my next question for you, Rohan, and I know we got to get you out of here pretty quickly, but what are the biggest questions you want to get answered in week 2? So this is just, it could be any aspect of the team. It could be coaching. It could be injuries. It could be whatever you want to see. But what are some of the biggest questions that you have about this 49ers team that you want to see get answered in week 2?
Can this team truly be a contender? I don't know if it's going to be answered against the Seattle Seahawks, a team that really isn't as strong, right? But to me, that's a question I want to see answered. And I do want to see how I want that answered. I want to see offense and defense work to the potential that we can see it. The 49ers currently are favored by 10 points in this game. I want to see if they can really eclipse that 10-point margin, win by over 10 points against a team that looked fairly decent in week 1, right? Obviously lucked out where Denver fumbled twice near the goal line, had the
100 yards and penalties.
Yeah, 100 yards of penalties, the missed field goal at the end, which was unexpected anyway. So, Denver beat themselves in that game. So now the 49ers, who did a similar thing, they've seen the Seahawks team before. Now has Geno Smith at the helm. Have looked pretty good defensively, especially in the first half. Can they kind of replicate that performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's going to be a few things. One, can this rushing attack be elite, right? We really expected this rushing attack to be top 5 with the addition of Trey Lance and obviously another year of Elijah Mitchell with a year under his belt. We looked at this running back room and thought it was extremely deep. And now we're looking at it and we're seeing question marks, right? So can this rushing attack be dominant? Because that's what really spawns the rest of this offense. If Trey Lance doesn't have play action, I don't know how effective he is in the rushing attack or in the flow of the game because he's really elite at play action. And the other thing I want to see is can the 49ers minimize their self-inflicted mistakes, right? We saw this as a major issue in the first half of last year with all of the unnecessary penalties, pass interference, holding. Last year it was mostly in the secondary. Right. This year it seems like it's coming more from the linebacking core and things like that. But whomever is coming from, it needs to stop. And is it going to take a whole half season like it did last year before they clean it up, or can they clean it up immediately? That's the biggest question that I want to see in week 2, because once again, this is a team that on paper, they shouldn't be able to compete with the 49ers. Just like the Bears on paper shouldn't have been able to compete with the 49ers. But if the 49ers continue to do their self-inflicted mistakes like they did, that's the only reason why the Bears were able to stick around and end up getting the victory, right? So it is a divisional game. It is Seattle. They're always going to be a tough one to get out of there just because of the familiarity and the rivalry. But we can't give them more opportunities, right? That's the biggest thing that I want to see.
I think that makes sense.
I don't know if you're saying anything, Rohan. You're kind of cutting.
Really,
okay, sorry.
Okay.
There's a little delay on your
side.
side.
A huge thing, right? Uh-oh. Hopefully we are good soon. But I'll talk, and here's what I'll say. Penalties kind of, that's the big thing. And like you said, to that, turnovers attribute to that. Discipline attributes to that, be it third down conversions or not allowing third down conversions. Just don't beat yourself, because this team, like you said, on paper, has the chance to do something special in 2022 after making it to the NFC Championship game in 2021. So to me, that's what I want to see from this team also. Can they not beat themselves? Can they play more disciplined football? Can they really have better cohesion with each other so that these penalties aren't
Rohan, we kind of lost you for a little bit.
Uh-oh.
I think, you kind of cut out at the end of it. But I think we got your overall gist. We'll get you out on this one, man, because I know you're getting over the cold, and it looks like your internet is a little bit sick as well. But I want to let you go. I know you're not big on predictions and scores and all that kind of stuff, but I do want to get a general sense of what you expect from this game, week 2. Who do you think wins, and how do you think
you want to get one out of me again, huh? Yeah. So if we're talking about week 2 and my prediction, I mean, last week I predicted, what was it, 20? I forget exactly my score prediction, but it was the 49ers winning last week. I'm 0 for 1 there. I do think the 49ers come out with a victory here. It's going to be better conditions. But a score prediction, I think the 49ers will probably put up around 20 points. Seattle might put up around, let's say, 13 points, somewhere around there. So I'd go 20-13.
Got you. So you were kind of robotish at that point, but it looks like you think the 49ers are going to get a victory, 20-13. Looks like what you were saying. Anything else that I missed from your prediction? I think Rohan is done, man. Oh, there we go.
I don't know if it's working or not. Like, for me, it's working all right, but for you guys, I don't know if it's working or not. So
that's cool. We're pretty much done, Rohan. I think for me, I do think it's going to be a dub for Seattle. I know your boy Marco thinks it's going to be an easy dub and a blowout by the 49ers. I think it'll be a little bit closer. I still don't have complete faith that this offense has it figured out to where they could consistently score or put together 4 quarters of football. And until I see that, I'm not going to give them the whole 30 points that I think eventually later on in the season they're going to be able to get. But I do think it's going to be a victory. I think they're going to win 17-10, and mainly because the defense isn't going to make those same stupid penalties and silly errors that they did. And I think they're just going to dominate off a outmatched offensive line. And especially with, Seattle losing Adams, don't think their defense is going to be that much of a I guess, challenge for the 49ers offense. So I do expect them to be able to move the ball. So overall, I think it's going to be a 17-10 victory. I think everybody looks a little bit better in this game than they did last week, and hopefully it'll change some of the narratives and that the faithful can, take a few steps off that cliff.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate analysis, and I think that I agree.
Beautiful, Rohan. I appreciate you jumping on, man. I know you're getting a little bit over a sickness out there. The Wisconsin weather is doing you dirty, but I appreciate you taking the time. Everybody in the chat section, thank you guys so much for jumping in. I know it was a little bit of a quicker show, but we'll definitely be back and give you some more when we have the time. But like I always say, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll talk again very, very soon. Enjoy the game this weekend, guys.